He gave up his seat the moment the train jerked, and the pregnant woman didn't even thank him. Instead she stared at him like he'd done something wrong. People around them watched quietly, waiting for drama, but no one expected her next move. She pointed at his backpack on the floor and said, "Why is your bag touching my space?" Her voice was loud enough that the whole aisle froze. He blinked, confused. "Ma'am, the train moved, it just slipped," but she cut him off. "Pick it up. Now, you think you can block a pregnant woman?" Her tone felt less like concern and more like an order. People whispered, but no one stepped in. He tried to stay calm, lifted the bag, and gave her a small nod, but she pushed further. She leaned toward the conductor and said, "He nearly hit me with that bag. I want him removed." His chest tightened. Removed? For giving up his seat. The conductor frowned at him, reaching for his radio, and the whole train went tense. That's when the man looked up slowly and said, "Ma'am, are you sure you want to go that far?" Her eyes narrowed, not knowing he wasn't just some random commuter, and the real twist was about to hit her harder than the brakes of that train. The conductor stepped closer, clearly ready to believe her, but the man didn't flinch. He stayed seated on the edge of the seat he'd given away and spoke quietly, almost too calm for the chaos around him. "Before you call anyone, maybe check the camera right above us." The woman snapped, "I don't care about cameras. He swung that bag at me." I felt threatened. She pressed a hand on her stomach dramatically, and a few passengers gasped like they'd just witnessed a crime. But then the train jerked again, and something slipped from inside the man's backpack, an ID card with a silver emblem. The woman's eyes flicked down, and she froze for a second before trying to pretend she hadn't seen it. The conductor picked it up, squinted, and his whole posture changed. He looked at the man, then quickly handed the card back with both hands, almost respectful. The woman demanded, "What? What is it? Why are you looking at him like that? Remove him." The conductor swallowed. "Ma'am, maybe you should lower your voice. You don't want to cause complications." She scoffed loudly, misunderstanding everything. "Complications? I'm pregnant. He should be the one apologizing to me." The man finally stood up, not angry, not loud, just steady. "I don't want trouble," he said, "but let's not play games with false claims." That camera saw everything. Her face tightened, a mix of fear and stubborn pride. She hadn't expected pushback. Definitely not from someone who carried an ID that made conductors nervous. Still, she crossed her arms and hissed, "Fine. Call whoever you want. I'm not scared." The man exhaled slowly, looked straight at her, and murmured, "You will be, when you find out who actually owns this entire train line." Her smirk vanished for the first time. She blinked, almost laughing like he was joking, but his face didn't move. The passengers leaned in, sensing the shift, and even the conductor took a small step back. "What do you mean, owns?" she asked, her voice lower now, less confident. The man didn't brag, didn't raise his voice, he just pulled out a second card from a hidden pocket in his bag. It wasn't shiny like the first one, this one had a dark blue seal and a signature at the bottom. The conductor's eyes widened as he read it, then he whispered, "Sir, I didn't know you were on board today." The woman's mouth fell open. "On board today? What is he, the president?" She snapped, trying to laugh it off, but no one joined her. People were staring at her like she had just picked a fight with the wrong person. The man sighed, almost embarrassed. "Ma'am, I didn't want attention. I only stood up because you needed the seat." He paused, then added softly, "but threatening me and filing a false report. That's something I can't ignore. This is a federal transportation line. False claims on federal property, that's serious." The color drained from her face. She looked at the conductor like he might save her, but he only backed away. "He's telling the truth. You should calm down before this becomes official." She stuttered, I didn't know, I didn't mean," but her voice shook. The man leaned in just slightly, almost whispering, "You didn't care who I was 5 minutes ago. You only cared about control." Her hands trembled on her stomach as she whispered, What's going to happen now?" He didn't answer. He simply looked toward the next station ahead, where blue uniformed transit officers were already waiting on the platform, and she had no idea they weren't there for him. As the train slowed, the woman's breathing turned uneven. She kept glancing at the officers waiting outside, convincing herself they were here to protect her. Good, she muttered, trying to regain confidence. They'll sort this out. They'll arrest you for threatening a pregnant woman. But the man didn't look worried. In fact, he looked almost tired. Passengers shifted, silent, watching the doors slide open. Two transit officers stepped in, scanning the crowd, then their eyes landed directly on him. Sir, one officer nodded respectfully, we were notified you might need assistance. The woman's jaw dropped. Assistance? No. He's the one who, but the officer raised his hand gently, stopping her mid-sentence. Ma'am, he said, please remain calm. We have camera footage and a conductor report already. Her head snapped toward the conductor, who now stood behind the officers. He avoided her stare like he wanted nothing to do with what was coming. She clutched the pole beside her. Camera. Report. I was the victim here. The second officer sighed. Ma'am, the footage shows you yelling, creating a disturbance, and making a false accusation. That's a serious issue on federal transit. She shook her head wildly, voice cracking. No, I didn't know who he was. I thought he was just. She stopped herself, realizing how bad that sounded. Just what? The man asked calmly. She stared at him, trapped between her pride and panic. Just someone who wouldn't fight back. The officers shared a look. The man nodded slowly. That's usually how bullies choose their targets. The woman's lips trembled. Please, I have a condition, I can't be in trouble. The officers stepped closer, one of them reaching gently for her arm, not to arrest yet, but to keep her from collapsing. Ma'am, he said softly, no one's charging you right now. But we do need to talk, and not here. She looked up, tears forming. Is he pressing charges? Everyone waited for the man's answer, but he simply picked up his backpack, slung it over his shoulder, and said, not yet. But that depends on what she does next. The woman swallowed hard, her bravado cracking completely. She glanced at the officers, then at the man, realizing for the first time that she was out of her depth. The passengers whispered, some shaking their heads, some smiling quietly, as if they'd been waiting for this moment. The man stepped off the train first, his pace calm, unhurried, as if nothing had happened, but every eye followed him. The officers flanked him slightly, keeping the woman contained. She stumbled after them, muttering excuses and trying to justify herself, but each word only made her guilt clearer. Once outside, the man stopped under the platform lights, glanced at the woman, and said softly, you made a choice inside. Every action has consequences. He didn't yell, didn't threaten, his voice carried weight without raising it. She froze. I didn't think. You didn't think, he interrupted gently, because you assumed no one would see through your act. You thought being loud would protect you. But truth always comes out. The officers stepped forward, and she realized that her usual control, the fake sympathy, the screaming, the sense of entitlement, meant nothing now. She looked at him, eyes wide, almost begging. Please, I can fix this, right? He smiled slightly, not cruelly, but in a way that made her heart sink. There's only one way to fix it, he said, reaching into his backpack. From inside, he pulled out a small device, pressed a button, and every phone, camera, and recorder around the platform lit up with footage of her entire outburst. Her face turned pale. No, you can't. I can, he said simply. And now, everyone will see exactly who caused the problem. The twist hit her fully. The man she thought was just a polite commuter, was prepared for everything. And now, there was no hiding, no excuses, no shortcuts out of the truth. The woman's knees went weak as she saw her own actions replayed on every screen around her, passengers whispering, pointing, some even recording for themselves. She tried to step back, but the officers gently held her in place. It's over, one of them said. Your false accusation has consequences. The man didn't gloat. He simply adjusted his backpack, turned slightly toward the crowd, and said in a calm voice that carried across the platform, I gave up my seat because it was the right thing to do. That's all anyone should ever expect. But threatening someone for kindness, that's not right, anywhere. She realized then that everyone was watching her, not just the officers, not just the passengers, but the truth itself. Her face burned with shame. I didn't know, she stammered, but no one interrupted him. The man took a step closer. You didn't care about knowing. You only cared about control, about proving a point you didn't even understand. That's the difference between people who lead and people who exploit. The officers exchanged a glance and nodded subtly. The woman's stomach sank as the full weight of her behavior hit her. She had aimed to humiliate him, to create chaos, and instead, she had exposed herself, completely. Then, in the quiet that followed, he turned to leave. The officers stepped aside, and the woman was left in the middle of the platform, silent, embarrassed, powerless. As he walked away, he glanced over his shoulder and smiled faintly, almost kindly. Next time, choose respect over entitlement. You might just save yourself some trouble. And just like that, the train doors closed behind him, leaving her frozen, the platform buzzing with whispers, and the twist she never saw coming. The man she tried to humiliate wasn't just any commuter. He had planned.